Hello, my name is Ashley. I'm from Imaginative Libraries, and this is a Teen Eats cooking tutorial, which is a part of a video series where I normally give some sort of teen media recommendation and then I cook something inspired by that recommendation. But today I want to do sort of a behind the scenes episode where I talk about mindfulness in the kitchen. So I've made 15 of these Teen Eats videos, and I've touched a little on kitchen safety throughout these videos, but I haven't really expanded on what could go wrong in the kitchen and what to do if something does go wrong in a kitchen. So today I'm going to walk through 3 big common kitchen problems and how to avoid these problems through practicing mindfulness in the kitchen. We are going to cook hot wings and pizza today because hot wings and pizza are my 2 favorite foods of all time, and they go really well together. So we first need to start by making the sauce. I have a couple cool kitchen tools I'm also going to showcase today. The first of these kitchen tools is a chef's knife. So this is actually a professional chef's knife. It's much larger than the knives I normally use, but as you can see, because it's much larger than the knives I normally use, there's a huge surface area. So the first way I'm going to show you how to practice mindfulness and how not to cut ourselves is by just taking firm control over our knife. I'm going to really grasp my knife and watch my fingers the whole time I am shift knotting our basil. So we're making the sauce to our pizza, and our sauce is going to be really simple. It's just tomatoes, oregano, garlic, basil, salt and pepper, and olive oil. I'm going to heat up the olive oil in this pan, add garlic, add oregano, and then we're going to crush the tomatoes into this pan. I have a couple cloves of garlic and a couple teaspoons of oregano sauteing in this olive oil. I'm just looking for the garlic to slightly change color, and then I'm going to add a bunch of tomato paste and a can of crushed tomatoes. We're not looking for a thin sauce like with our pasta puttanesco. This sauce has to have heft. It needs to be pretty thick, so we're not going to add any other liquid to our tomato sauce. So the first big kitchen problem I see, like I said, was cutting yourself. It is so easy to nick your hand while using knives, or even, I'm going to show you a mandolin next. Even while using a mandolin, really easy to accidentally nick yourself. So what do you do if you do nick yourself? The first thing you need to do if you accidentally cut yourself while slicing something up is to actually just assess the damage. If it's just a little nick, the next thing you do after you've nicked your finger is to wash your hands, make sure your nick is sterile, and then apply pressure, just like you would a nosebleed. And then after the bleeding stopped, you can wrap your hand up. If you have severely cut yourself, then that is a case for a medical professional. But I more frequently see just nicks happening in the kitchen, and nicks we can handle. We can safely clean our little accident and then make sure that we further practice attention when we're cutting, making sure our knives are nice and sharp, because that also helps to not nick ourselves. I'm going to simmer now this tomato sauce, it's quite thick, for probably 30 or 40 minutes, and we're going to make the pizza dough next. Our pizza sauce is simmering away in the background, so why don't we make our pizza dough and talk about burns? So in this small bowl, I have about a cup of water, a teaspoon of sugar, and and a package of instant dry yeast that is ready to be added to my flour and salt. So I'm just going to pour it right on in here. I'm actually using a gluten-free flour mix today because the real behind the scenes secret is that I just try to make all the food that I make in these videos appeal to not just me, but to whichever friends are going to eat my food with me. And in this case, it's gluten-free because I wanted to try a gluten-free pizza dough. We're just going to see how this turns out. I'm never totally sure if what I'm going to make will come out perfectly, but we're just experimenting. So a couple weeks ago, I experienced my first big burn while cooking, and when I burned myself, I did not know what to do, so I sort of panicked, and all I did was run my hand underneath cold water for about 15 minutes, and then I lightly wrapped my hand up. And it turns out that that is exactly what you should do when you accidentally burn yourself. So the reason why I burned myself a while ago was because I wasn't really paying attention when I was simmering a sauce on my stove, and I accidentally got butter all over my hand. I totally could have avoided this if I was just paying really close attention to what I was doing. So there's no real big secret to preventing common kitchen accidents other than to just totally pay attention to what we're doing. If you're working with heat or something really sharp, it's really important to make sure you know where the heat source is at all times, you know where the blade is at all times, and to make sure your fingers are protected at all times. So, my dough is sort of coming together here. It's really loose. I'm going to have to keep adding more and more flour until it becomes a little more stiff, and then we're going to knead this dough right here on my counter. This dough needs to be kneaded for probably 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, around there. And then I'm going to let it rest in a bowl. After I let this dough rest, the next thing we're going to make is my specialty, which is hot wings. We're going to make baked hot wings. Let's prep our baked hot wings. So I have my wings here that have been patted dry. And to these wings, I'm going to add olive oil, baking powder, and some spices. I have a prepared baking sheet here. I'm going to actually bake these hot wings in my little mini convection oven. But if I was making them in my big oven, then I would add a baking rack on top of this baking sheet, but I don't have a baking rack for my little oven. So these hot wings, in my opinion, are going to be just as good as hot wings you would get from a restaurant. They're so crisp and really juicy, and also really easy to prepare. So these hot wings only take like 30 minutes to make in an oven, but it's really worth it. And I don't know where I got this recipe at, but I didn't invent this recipe. But I make this all the time just because it is so simple. And they are one of my favorite foods. So I've coated them really well. And then next I'm just laying them on my prepared baking sheet here. They're going to cook in a 425-degree oven for 10 minutes each side, and then we will make the hot wing sauce to go on top of the wings. Now we are going to prep our pizza toppings and talk about our last big kitchen problem. So my pizza today is going to be Gouda, mozzarella, jalapeno, and prosciutto. So I've started slicing my jalapenos on my mandolin. And now a mandolin is just a vertical blade. It actually comes with a couple different options here. It could be a grater. We're using this long blade today. And the trick to a mandolin is just force. But these things are so easy to cut yourself on. Once we come to the end of our chili here, I'm going to actually stop slicing it because force propels our chilies forward, but it's also force that might nick ourselves. And the same principle is going to apply to my box grater. So I'm just going to grate my Gouda. But because I am pushing this cheese into a really sharp blade here, I'm just going to be really gentle and take my time. I am not in a hurry to grate this cheese. When we're hurrying around these sharp objects, these sharp kitchen tools, is when accidents can happen. I'm just being really gentle here. The last big kitchen problem I want to go over today is actually not an accident that can happen to your body, but an accident that would happen to your kitchen tools. So this is something I've encountered a lot this summer, but I have been cooking on too high of a heat, and I thought I had ruined last week my wok. So here's my wok. It's nice and clean, but last week I accidentally burned some noodles onto this pan, and I thought because it formed such a crust on the pan that the pan was broken and no longer usable. So the big problem, the third big problem, is just cooking our food on too high of a heat. Nothing we're cooking today besides in our oven, or nothing I'm cooking on in these Teen Eats videos needs to be cooked at a high heat on your stove. Almost anything can be cooked at either a medium heat or a medium low heat or even a low heat. We're just going to avoid the high heat element when we can, because if we are cooking food at too high of a heat, not only do we risk our pans here, but we risk our food. We don't want to burn our food. We don't want to burn our pans. We want our pans to last. So I'm going to take my own advice here, and we are going to cook this food at a reasonable heat. It's time to compile our pizza. So I have put my pizza dough into my cast iron pan with some olive oil, and I just pressed it into the pan. It seems like this gluten-free dough isn't really rollable, but that's okay. And now I'm going to spread some pizza sauce onto the dough. This. There's something really satisfying about piling a pizza, spreading all of our sauce onto the dough. And then I'm just going to cover my pizza here with lots of cheese. I have some mozzarella cheese, like I said, and Gouda, and these jalapenos, and also some prosciutto. And then I'm going to put this in my oven, which I've heated to 400 degrees. This will probably need to go in the oven for 30 to 40 minutes. Then we're going to baste our hot wings in some hot sauce. The last thing we are making today is our buffalo wing sauce. So I just have my favorite buffalo wing sauce in this pan with a couple tablespoons of butter. I'm just melting this, and then I am going to baste it over my cooked chicken wings and put them back in my mini oven for 5 minutes so that this wing sauce sort of like adheres to the chicken wing and makes it a little bit more crisp. And then it is time to eat. Okay, so here is my pizza and my wings. They look really good. I didn't really have a teen media recommendation for this week, but if I could recommend something, I would recommend Hoopla, which is a digital streaming service that's free through your library card. I just read Nimona, which is a comic book on Hoopla. I would also recommend free mindfulness apps like Calm and the Mindfulness Timer, because mindfulness doesn't end in the kitchen. And if you were ever wondering how you could follow along with these Teen Eats videos, in the description for this video will be a link to my recipes. So thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you next time.